Okay, so welcome to Mobility Snack. Today we're going to focus on our hamstrings in a couple different ways. If you do have some sort of a therapy ball, tennis ball, foam roller, we're going to start with just a little bit of nervous system coaching by rolling. If you don't have one of those things, you can just massage yourself. And then we're going to move into just different expressions of hamstring, what I'm going to call activation or contraction. So we'll work our hamstrings in different ranges of motion, both at the proximal attachment, which is at your pelvis, and the distal attachment, which is behind your knees. So one thing to think about is just yoga in general. We often are tasked to stretch the hamstrings. Many poses in yoga stretch the hamstrings either as their full sole focus or just as kind of like a side effect of the pose. The hamstrings get stretched. There aren't very many poses that we hold long enough to actually strengthen or make any long-term changes as far as tone goes in the hamstrings. So as I mentioned in the email, I had an injury several years ago, but it flares back up every now and then, where my tendon attaches, the tendon that attaches from your hamstrings to your ischial tuberosity that got really kind of grumpy and inflamed. Turns out I was stretching them too much and not strengthening them enough. So this practice that I'm going to do today with you guys is kind of what I did to get myself out of pain and start to heal those tissues by contracting them rather than just pulling on them. Because as we know, pulling on something weak generally doesn't have a good result. So with all of that being said, let's do it. The other thing you might want, I might get to this, I might not, is something to hold on to, like a strap or a bathrobe tie or even a resistance band. I'm going to try to keep this a fairly short practice for you because I've been getting some feedback that people like those little mini practices. So let's see what we can get done. Come onto your bum and you're going to have your ball. If you don't have a ball, just use your fingers. You're going to set that ball or you could use your foam roller right in the belly of your hamstrings on one leg. And then you're just going to roll on the heel. I apologize if my feet are dirty. I've been walking around outside and in my garage. I kind of forgot until just now that I meant to clean off my feet. So this is a thigh rotation, but because we have that little ball under there, we're just providing a little bit of a massage in that area. As a reminder, anytime we're rolling, we want to avoid sharp or electrical sensations, and we also just want to make sure we're rolling on soft tissue, which is why I like putting it right smack dab in the middle. And then you can move the ball up just an inch or so that you're getting a little higher, a little closer to your pelvis. And you might notice that we're kind of rolling against the grain of the muscle. And then maybe just a little bit higher. We want to try not to get too close to the ischial tuberosity, which is also sometimes called your sitting bone. We'll stay below that. And then let's go just above the knee. So still in the soft tissue, not in your joint. We'll save that one for last. And we aren't actually going to roll vertically. We're going to just switch legs. So let's start in the middle, where you feel kind of that big protrusion. Oh, I almost forgot our other tool that we need is a blanket or some paper plates or socks. If you don't have that, it's okay. I can show you a different way to do it. Let's move the ball just a little bit up. Ooh, got a tender spot there. If you find a tender spot, it doesn't hurt just to stop moving and just kind of pin it and hold and breathe. Go up just another inch or so, getting closer to your pelvis, but not too close. Oh, I found another spot, y'all. Interestingly enough, I'm on my left leg. The left leg is the injured side. Even though it's been a while, I still feel like there's some holding going on, or some safety mechanisms there on my part, because I know I've had an injury there. So it's kind of like a protection. All right, let's go back down to just above the knee. And you're going to take that little rolling. You can always add in more sensation just by pressing down on that ball a little bit more. And then as we come down onto our back, you'll want your blanket or your sliders or your paper plates close to you, just so that you don't have to get back up to get them. So come on down to your back. And we're going to start in a bridge preparation pose with your feet like you normally would have them in bridge. So I won't even instruct you how to set that up. You're just going to find what feels about right for you. And just play around with your pelvis positioning, tucking and untucking, noticing how that changes the shape of your spine and your lumbar curve. And then just settle into neutral, rest your arms and shoulders, and find your breath. In and out through your nose, nice and easy. Doing your best to create that equal pressure system on the inhale, so that it doesn't just default into your front ribs or belly. We're getting nice balanced expansion on all sides, including the back side. We'll just take about 3 to 5 more breaths. Perhaps you slow down the exhale just a little bit more. And then really press your feet down into your yoga mat like you were trying to put your footprint into that surface. Lift and spread your toes, and then just kind of let them relax. And then at the same time we're pressing down, we'll also get a sense of the heels dragging back towards our seat. And as you do that, notice if your spine wants to arch a little bit, and just try to counter that with a little bit more containment of the front rib cage. And then imagine you're pulling your heels away from you, like you're trying to open your knees, but you can't because your feet are on the ground. And then heels pull to the seat. This is just isometrics. Always pretty safe thing to do, even if there is an injury. And then press down and imagine you're trying to pull your heels away from your body. We'll do 2 more just like that, back and forth. You might feel yourself kind of sliding a little bit in the spine, the sacrum. That's basically just your skin moving. Try not to change the shape of your bones. That's kind of a weird thought, isn't it? Your skin is moving. Your skin and your fascia and your muscles. Okay, now we're actually going to do a few bridges. I'm not going to cue you into the spine articulation like I normally do. You're just going to try to get the job done however you can. And let's go exhale to lift the hips, and inhale to lower the hips. So one phase of the movement might be a little bit faster or slower than the other. Don't get too wrapped up in the articulation. Let's just put a little more focus here on the backs of our thighs, since this is a hamstring class. Notice if it changes things for you when you change that pulling or pushing from the feet. And then let's hold this next bridge pose. Wherever you land, you land. Don't worry about getting it super deep. Just lift your hips until they stop. And then consciously contract a little bit more in the glutes. And consciously think of your thigh bones hugging towards your midline, so you can feel a little bit of work on those inner thighs as well. Add in a little more activation on the backs of your knees as if you're trying to pull your heels towards your body. A couple more breaths. And then come back down to your backs. Stretch your legs up. They do not have to be completely straight, but if you can get your knees all the way extended open, then do that. And we'll just try to bring the ankles about over the hips, more or less. And then you're going to visualize that you have a ball behind your knee or an orange. Sometimes I use an orange or a grapefruit. And then you're going to pull your heels towards your bum and squeeze behind your knee. That's going to get your distal hamstrings, the ones that close your knee. And then extend your leg really, really straight, as straight as it'll go. And think of pulling your thigh bones back into the hip. Bend and squeeze behind your knee. Really, really tight back there. And then open your legs as much as your hamstrings will allow. Think of snuggling your femur bones back down to the ground. Let's do 2 more like that. Good squeeze. Extend straight. And 1 more time. Last time to extend. Beautiful. Okay, so as you set your feet back down onto the ground, you're going to move your dog out of the way. Jeez. And walk your feet at least 1 footprint further away from your hips. So if your heels were really close to your body last time, let's go even a little further than that so that your knees are more open. This is going to challenge your hamstrings a little bit more. And as we find our bridge here, you might feel like you want to lift your toes off the ground, and that's totally fine. So go ahead and find a bridge. Remember, it can be fairly conservative or moderate. It doesn't have to be a very extremely high bridge pose. And then once again, really press your heels down, and at the same time, think of dragging them back towards your tush. Notice that you might start to feel things, including maybe a cramp. My left one is starting to cramp. I'm just going to try to breathe through it. Maybe do a little bit less. And then lean back in and try to find that same activation as before in the backs of my thighs. 2 more breaths. Lower all the way down. And then stretch both legs straight for a moment and consciously extend your knee all the way open. As you extend your knee all the way open, pull your toes towards your shins and drag your heels down into the ground. And then as you think of pulling your heels back towards your body, your knees are going to bend a little bit, just a teeny tiny bit. And then extend your legs straight. You'll feel your quads engage. Do that again. Press heels down, isometrically pull your heels towards you, even though they're not going to move. Your knees are going to bend. And then straighten your legs all the way. Press your hamstrings into your mat. 2 more like that. Just a micro bend, but that's coming from the back side of the knees. And extend straight. Try to keep your pelvis still. 1 more time. Press heels down and consciously try to get them closer to your bum. And then extend your legs straight. Take a moment to relax. Just let your toes turn out. Find your breath. The last thing we're going to do on our backs is we're going to use our sliders, our socks, or our blanket. So you're going to have to fold up the bottom of your mat so that you can get your feet on the slidey surface. So if you've got carpet, you're going to want paper plates. If you've got hardwood, you can use your socks or your blanket. And then just set your feet however you want them for a bridge again. Before we lift the hips, we're just going to use that object underneath our feet to extend the knee and flex the knee. So you're just going to press the blanket away from you until your legs are straight. And then press down into your feet, into your heels, and pull that blanket or the plates towards your body. Let's do a few more like that. It's kind of like you're trying to scrub the floor with whatever's underneath your feet. And the ankle position doesn't matter so much. I really like to flex my feet, but if you're pointing your toes, that's actually working the back chain a little bit more. So you might get a little bit more calf sensation there with the feet pointed, so you can do it either way. Try not to change your spine though. My low back really wants to arch on this one. When you get to the straight leg position, isometrically hug your glutes, just for fun. Can never get too much glutes. Little squeeze back there. Push even more through your heels as you drag that blanket towards your body. And keep pushing down as you send the blanket away from your body. Okay, next time you pull your blanket towards you, set your feet for your bridge anywhere that you want to, and find a bridge. You can just stay here and work on regular old bridge pose. But since you have the slidey thing underneath you, you could also try to keep your hips raised and send your legs a little straighter, challenging the hamstrings in their eccentric lengthening phase. You could even send your legs all the way straight with your hips up. Keep trying to tuck your pelvis under. And then I recommend, if you do go all the way straight with your legs, then just set your hips down before you try to pull your feet back towards your hips, unless you want a really strong hamstring cramp right off the bat. Once you get down, pull your heels back in. Reset yourself, lift your hips. This is a good place to be. If you want more, you're going to pull the heels away from your body and let them slide on the floor any amount. So it might just be an inch, it might be 3 inches. Once you start to feel a lot of work, you just stay. Try to lengthen out through your low back so you don't make this into a back bend. If you get your legs all the way straight, set your hips down and pull your heels in. And I should clarify that if your hips are up off the ground, it is indeed a back bend, but we want to put more of the work in the back, so the legs as much as possible. Let's try for 2 more like that. Rest when you need to. Any amount of lift, any amount of knee extension. Slowly pressing the heels out if you're doing that. And then set your hips down to pull them back in. Pulling the heels back in with the hips up would be a progression. I'm going to do 1 more. Take it easy whenever you need to. And then we're going to let that go. So just reset your legs however you like. You could take them back up over your hips again if you want to. You could massage the backs of your legs with your fingers. You can give yourself a little squeeze. Thighs to chest, head and shoulders can come off the ground. Make a little cannonball shape. And then you can just rock and roll as much as you want to make your way up to standing. So if you did my class on Friday, we did a lot of this. Just get to standing however you're able to. Didn't make it. Try again. There we go. Okay, so from standing, just give your legs a little shake. Oh. Find Tadasana. Set your feet about as wide as your hips, more or less, so that your heels are about under those sitting bones. And then think of the action of scraping gum off the bottom of your shoe, and actually do that a couple times. It kind of looks like a chicken scratch. So push your feet into the ground and then quickly drag them back behind you And then keep your feet down on the ground and try to do both feet at the same time. As if you're trying to pull your heels to the back of your mat, you might notice your knees bend a little bit. Keep all that energy that you just created and then hinge through your hips and fold over your legs. Same activation in the backs of the thighs that's coming from the feet. Come up halfway and find that nice long back. Forward fold again. Deepen your hip crease hinge. And use the posterior side of you now, the backs of your legs, your glutes, even your spinal muscles, to come up through that hip hinge all the way to standing again. Feel the work in the back side. Take your arms over your head. Take another breath in. Keep that chicken scratch action and fold over your legs. You can do whatever you want with your arms. Pressing down and dragging back at the same time, come up to the halfway lift. And forward fold. Step back to tabletop. You may wish to pad underneath your bottom leg knee here. So we're going to step the left foot forward, and then your right knee is going to stay on the ground. Let's try to get that right thigh vertical, left shin vertical, hands on your blocks or inside your foot. Either one's fine. I'm going to use my blocks. All right. So trying to keep that right leg pretty vertical. So it's not really like a hip lunge here. It's more about the back of your right thigh, because we're going to float the right foot off the ground and squeeze behind our knee like we have that orange back there. And then you can even reach back with your right hand and pull your heel closer to your seat and close the gap behind your right knee. You might sense a little quad stretch in the front. See how much of this knee flexion you can hang on to as you let go of your hand. Let go of your foot, rather, with your hand. Keep breathing. Think of dropping your tailbone down slightly. You might start to shake. Take another breath. And then let it go. Blocks on their high side out in front of you. Tuck your back toes, lift your right knee off the ground, step forward. Find that halfway lift, but feel the work in the back body. And forward fold again. All the way to stand. Power from the bum and the hamstrings. Reach overhead. And then keep that action on the back side. Hinge and fold over your legs. Hands to your blocks is good. Step your left knee back down underneath your hip. Different side now. Same thing. Hands can come to the inside of your right foot. Left knee under your hip. Let's first find our passive range. You're going to bring your heel towards your bum, and you can reach back with your left hand if you're able to, and just hold on to your foot. And once you've got that, try to keep what you have as much as possible. Actively, you're going to let go of your foot and use your hamstrings instead, breathing. A little bit of a tuck of the pelvis. One more breath. And then let that go. Blocks on their high side out in front of you. Tuck your back toes, lift your knee, and step forward again. Kind of like a mini salutation. Come up halfway. And fold. Rise to stand. Work is in the back side. And then dive back down. Take a moment here in just a relaxed forward fold and alternate by bending one knee as you straighten the other. Let your hips sway a little bit when you do that. Okay, we're going to come to standing again. You're going to want that blanket off to the side if you had it down for your knee. And it doesn't really matter where you're standing on your mat here, but we are going to use one foot as a kickstand. Let's just go ahead and step the left toes back a little bit and lift your heel off the ground. And then with your right leg, you're just going to have a little bit of a bend in your knee, kind of like you're going to do like a lunge, but your feet are closer together. They can still be hip wide. Press your right heel down a lot. Think of that chicken scratch action as you pull it behind you, and then create a hip hinge. Really nice, long, neutral curves in your back. As you continue to root through your foot, use the stuff here on the back side of your right thigh to extend your right hip straight. That means to stand up, and then squeeze the tush on that right side. Let's do that a few more times. So it's kind of like a deadlift, but we're keeping the left foot as a kickstand. So it's asymmetrical deadlift, I guess you could say. We'll do a couple more. So it's like a forward fold, but we're challenging this right high hamstring and a little bit of the glutes. One more time. And now let's find that same hip hinge. Do what you want with your arms here. Maybe hands to heart, arms can be out at a T. They could even reach back into extension. Let's turn this into a warrior 3. Left leg's gonna come all the way back, minimizing any sway in the low back. I'm trying to button up the front ribs slightly. Now put even more weight in your right heel, so much so that you could lift your right toes if you wanted to. Start to sit your weight back a little bit further and bend your right knee. Lots of weight in the heel. Think of dragging your right heel backwards, and we're just breathing and holding. Your blocks are right there, so if you need them, you can use them. Last 5, 4, 3, 2. Keep kicking with your left leg and straighten your right knee a little bit. Breathing for 5, 4, 3, 2. Straighten your right knee a little bit more. It's still bent. Holding for 5, 4, 3, 2. One more time, just a little straighter. Breathing. Keep dragging back in your mind. And then you're going to keep your right leg as bent as you want to. And slowly, on a 5 count, we're going to stand back up. So leave that left leg floating as long as you can. 5, 4. Drive through the heel. 3, 2. Step forward. Are you feeling things? High hamstrings, hopefully, maybe a little glutes as well. Give it a little shake, shake, shake. And let's do a half sun salutation. Raise your arms, breathe in. Breathe out, still feeling that chicken scratch action in your heels. Fold over your legs. Come up halfway, lengthen it out. And fold it in again. Think chest to thighs. Rise to stand. Use the strength on the back side. And then you can just take your hands to your hips, and we'll do that same single leg deadlift. Sometimes I think they call these good mornings. So kickstand your right foot. Short little staggered stance. Do bend your left knee. It doesn't have to be a lot. Actively press down through your left heel. And then hinge about halfway down, level to the horizon more or less. And then pull from that backside to stand up. Let's try for like 4 more of those. Kind of fighting against gravity as we come down, not letting it pull us towards the floor, but instead just kind of resisting, using body weight and awareness. 2 more times. The next time you find your spine about level to the horizon, horizontal, choose an arm position for your warrior 3, and then find your balance on your left leg. Right leg is going to extend. Now you have your glutes engaged on that right leg. Lighten up the load in your left toes. Send some energy down through your heel, and still think of the pull back in your heel. Bend your knee as much as you can. It's okay if the knee travels a little bit beyond the toes or even the ankle here. But if you're feeling any strain in the front of the knee, back out of that. Remember, your blocks are here if you want them, at least for the beginning phase. Can you still move your toes without lifting the ball of your foot? Breathing. Just a few degrees. Straighten your left leg a little bit more, not much, just enough to feel a change. Think of a little cobra in your chest. You're going to keep your shoulders down and kind of back, and the collarbones wide without back bending. Open the knee a little bit more. Push through your heel. Think of dragging it backwards. Keep that right leg strong as well. A little bit more straight. Can your breathing be more focused but relaxed? A little straighter. Still in it. A little straighter. Keep what you have in your left leg, and now pull your trunk to standing slow, slow. Let that right leg hover as long as it can in extension. And then relax and shake it out. Woofda. Sun salutation, the whole thing this time. We haven't warmed up shoulders and wrists, so take care of yourself. Raise your arms. Forward fold. Plant your palms, step back to a plank, or you could do a tabletop if you prefer. Find just a few breaths here and really open up the backs of your knees. So now you're in full knee extension. Hamstrings are lengthening. Find a sense of your hands pulling towards your toes. As you start to bend your elbows, pull your plank in one piece to the floor. Untuck your toes. Think of cat pose in your pelvis, tuck under. Fly your arms back like wings. Raise your arms as high as they'll go. And lift your chest a little bit or a lot. Contract the whole back side. Bend your elbows. Place your palms beside your chest, a little cobra or an up dog. Downward dog. Hamstrings on stretch, and you can do what you did earlier when you were folding and just kind of really pedal the legs. Hips might sway. Okay, let's lift the heels, walk ourselves forward, and then you're going to try to squat to sit, whatever that looks like for you. You'll need your strap. If you have an actual strap that buckles, you'll want to make yourself a big lasso. If you don't have a strap that buckles, you won't make a lasso. I'm going to show you with the lasso first. We're going to come down into our back with the strap around our right foot. If you have a full loop, you can place that strap behind your head. So we did this Wednesday night. Call it the hamstring hammock. I've learned this on Yoga Glow. Can't even remember the teacher's name now, but it was a yin class. So you can shorten up that tassel if you want a little bit more. And just make sure your neck is comfortable. It's not around your neck, it's on your head. I like to press my head back a little bit and tuck my chin. I feel like it gives me just a little bit of support around my neck. If you just have a bathrobe tie or something like that, just gonna hold the ends and take yourself into a passive hamstring stretch. Don't worry about how straight your leg is or how close it is to you. If you're feeling a stretch, you're doing it right. And while you're in this kind of end range position, think about contracting the muscle where your pelvis and your thigh bone meet behind you. So that really, really high hamstrings, it's stretching now. Let's see if you can contract right there and just give it a little squeeze. Keep your strap where it is, but hold the back of your right thigh, interlaced grip with your hand. Kick your leg into your hands for 5, 4, 3, 2. Hold your strap again, and maybe your leg comes a little closer to you. Let's do the resistance stretch one more time. Kick into your hands. And then last time in that passive stretch, kind of like doing the splits on your back. Release your strap. Take a moment with both legs all the way to the ground. Feet just a little bit wider than your hips. And then let's do our little rotations here. So toes can point in, thigh bones rolling internally, and then roll to the outside edge of your heels. Your toes will fan apart. External rotation. 2 more. Last one. Beautiful. Now you're going to split your legs, left leg on top this time. With or without your hammock, doesn't matter. Let's try to find a position that feels sensational, but still comfortable and relaxed. I still have a little bit of weakness in this left leg, so because my nervous system senses that there maybe isn't as much strength there, it does limit my movement somewhat, so I don't have the range on this side that I do on my right side. My brain's doing that on purpose. Sense your breath flowing in and out through your nose. Your equal pressure system on the inhale. Back ribs, side ribs, front ribs, all the same. And we're going to do 2 rounds of that self-resisted stretch. Hands behind your thigh, rest your head and shoulders, and then kick into your hands. So many times in a hamstring stretch, we're trying to pull our leg closer to us. When we kick into the hands, we're showing that we can be strong in this position. And then you can relax into that passive stretch, and you might have a new range now. I sure do. Let's do 1 more round of that. Kick into your hands. A little bit more effort than last time. One last time into that passive range. You can use your strap to guide your leg a little closer if you want to. And then as you release that, I'll give you just a few moments to kind of play around with anything that would feel good in your body right now, whether that's happy baby or a butterfly, some of those rotations again. Another bridge, if you're feeling super energetic. And then let's rock and roll our way up to a seated position. And we'll take 1 forward fold. Adjust your pelvis so it feels pretty neutral and balanced. I'm going to start with my knees bent on this one and dig my heels back down into the ground, and then think of pulling them back again. So we're starting with some intentional knee flexion, even though we're not really changing position too much. And then just lay your chest or your rib cage down towards your thighs. If you can make a connection there, great, but if there's some space there, no worries. Option to gradually work your legs a little straighter as you keep the rib to thigh connection. You can hold on to whatever you can reach. Feet, toes, ankles, calves. Think of pressing the backs of your knees open towards the floor, even if it doesn't go all the way straight. You can just pause when you feel a nice stretch. 2 more breaths. And then work your way back up to the seat, because we are finished. For those of you on Zoom, we do have time for a little chit chat if you want it. just unmute your microphone and let me know how that went. Facebook crew, you can just leave me a comment or send me an email. Let me get this turned back to my speakers. There we go. Any cramps? I had almost a cramp. Didn't quite develop all the way.
Sarah, I love the whole point of strengthening what we so often just stretch, and even in that just slight intention of that isometric movement. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, because that's good that you noticed that, because even when you're contracting a muscle, you're still stretching it because the ends are still fixed. So the knee point is still fixed, the proximal by the ischium is still fixed, and the middle portion of the muscle is contracting, but then the other parts are still, I mean, you're still getting a stretch. Some part of the muscle is still getting stretched. So no matter if you're like closing the knee or opening the knee, some portion or all of it really, there's tension on the whole system there. So technically everything is a stretch. A bicep curl is a stretch. It's the terminology of stretch. We think of pulling something apart, but it's really any load on a muscle is technically a stretch because you're kind of taxing the system in some way. I love this resistance stretching. It feels so good to me. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. So when we were doing Warrior 3, I was fine on the right side. On the left side, we were standing there with a knee bent, balancing, and I noticed that I was just dumping into that hip, like leaning into the left. It was like extending out. And once I realized that, I kind of consciously shifted it back. But I didn't know if that was like an indicator of something that's just weaker on that side.
It sounds like maybe you were unable to really load your glutes in that position, because technically in that Warrior 3, if you think about our position, we're in hip flexion, but our effort is hip extension. So if we aren't able to produce force in the effort of hip extension, then we can kind of get dumpy into that side. So I would say it's related to the glutes and that really high hamstring where it connects to the glutes, just trying to find a little bit more awareness of that spot. The bridges work good for that. You could try doing a single leg bridge. What has happened to me over the years is that my right side has gotten really strong because I always demonstrate on the right side, which makes my left side just neglected over the years. And so that's the side I had the injury on. It was always the weaker side because of that. And then I was just stretching on it. And it still isn't back to where it was. So I feel the same exact thing that you do on my left side because that side's a little weaker still. I don't know if that could be it or not, but I'm thinking the glute hamstring relationship just isn't quite what it is on your right side.
I'm sure. I know that over the years I have, because my left knee bothers me, I favor that side. So I know my left quad is smaller than my right quad.
Yeah.
By a good half inch.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense, because then your left quad being, the quad it helps to extend the knee straight. So that makes sense too. If your left quad isn't able to support that kind of terminal knee extension of opening the knee, and the hamstrings might also be a little bit weaker in the flexion of the knee. So there's just less support there overall. It's amazing that you're aware of that. I mean, that's obviously huge. It rarely has to do anything with flexibility. It's all about.
I wasn't aware that a physical therapist measured my thighs, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And pointed it out to me.
Yeah. Well, and then you wonder what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did your knee injury happen and then that stuff happened? Or did your knee get injured because it wasn't as strong there? I mean, who knows? It could be you were born that way. One side was just a little bit, less capable to begin with. Who knows? We never know. But I have to do more reps, more weight, more sets on my left side just to even feel somewhat equal, and they're still not even close after all these years. They're getting better, but they're still not there. Because I still find myself demonstrating on my right side. Even knowing this, it's just so habitual.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Of course. How are you doing, Sarah?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm doing well.
Good.
I'm doing well. The thing that really got me was when we were in bridge and sliding things out.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of cramping and really couldn't go very far.
Yeah, and that's completely normal. That is an advanced progression. And that's why I said you can just stay here, because bridge is hard enough as it is, especially as you widen your stance. Your hamstrings are now lengthening, and that's an eccentric contraction. It's harder for your hamstrings to contract when they're being pulled on. So the further away your feet get from your butt, the harder it's going to be to control that. So yeah, I started to get a cramp too, and I've been doing those like regularly. So I'm not surprised at all that you got a little crampy. And that's just, it's your nervous system saying, hey, this is new. I've not been here before. I'm not quite sure what to do. That's what the cramp signaling is. It's just kind of new territory. And that's actually good, because that means you reached kind of a new threshold that you haven't been in a while or before at all. So good job.
And not related to this class, but last week's mobility snap where we were working on the TFL.
Yeah.
So while I was doing the class, I was like, I don't think I'm doing this right at all. And so after class, I did it again. And I have to tell you, the sciatica pain that I've been feeling down my right side really eased up. And so now I'm incorporating those stretches into my daily routine.
Oh, that's so fabulous. Fabulous. Yes. Do them daily, or a little bit of them daily. That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yay.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks. You too. Take care of yourselves. How are we doing, fam? Anybody still on the call? Let me know how that went. Hope you earned a cramp or two. Yes, Susan. Yep. Sometimes the glutes need a little more coaxing, right? That's fabulous.